February 25th, 2025. Attendance has been taken, noting that we have a full council. The second thing on our agenda is the land acknowledgement, and Councillor Bell is going to take us there.
Thank you. As we gather, we acknowledge that we meet on the lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, Six Nations of the Grand River, and the traditional territory of the Atiwonderong. We remind ourselves that the County of Brant is situated on lands that are full of rich Indigenous history and home to many First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people today. We recognise the significance of their contributions to the past, present, and future of this land. As a county, we have a shared responsibility for the stewardship of the land on which we live and work, and a commitment to the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. We commit to continue learning, reflecting on our past, and working in allyship.
Thanks, Councillor Bell. It takes us to number 3 on our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything to add to the agenda? And just a note to council, as of tonight, we're going to, if you have anything to put under new business, we're going to ask you to state what the new business is when you do that, so that if there's any staff that needs to stay or if the clerk needs to do something before we get to your new business, once you declare it, then we can do that work. So thank you. If there's no additions to the agenda, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move by myself, second by Councillor Kyle, that the County of Brant Council agenda and addendum of February 25th, 2025 be approved.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Do you see any, Councillor Oakley?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will have to conflict out on 15.5.
15.5. Thank you. Are there any others? Okay, thank you. Oh, Councillor House.
Thank you. I may have one later, depending on how the discussion goes. So I'll flag you if that comes up.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next thing on the agenda is our delegations, and I'm going to remind the delegations that you have 10 minutes for your presentations, and then we're going to take it to council if they have any concerns or questions to give to you after that. Then your time will be extended. So the first delegation is John Kemp, coming to talk to us about the hogweed. Sorry that you have to keep coming back. We wish that it all magically disappeared for you, but anyway, welcome, and you've got 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So, thank you for giving me time to report here. So we have giant hogweed is a poisonous plant that has invaded the Grand River watershed, probably from a horticultural escape, and the seeds are moving downstream, and they begin to propagate on surprise lands. So the giant hogweed mitigation project has been working on 3 primary thrusts since 2019. We try to do education, we do as much plant removal as we can using volunteers, and we attempt to legislate to affect some legislation. We've worked with the folks from Six Nations as well, and we've been into some high schools to try and teach the youth how to play around the plants and be safe. So the sap is the poisonous part. If the sap gets in contact with your skin, then you can get essentially a 3rd-degree sunburn. It takes a few hours for it to happen. It might be 2 or 3 days before you see the problem, and then you get these nasty blisters. The next picture I have is a little more graphic. Oop, I think we missed one here. There we go. So yes, it says day 5 on the one side, and it says month 5 on another. This is because it does take a long time to heal, and you can end up with a stain in the skin later. Some of the pictures in the middle also have a bandana, and that's to keep the weeping from getting in the shoe and the sock. It's pretty nasty. So if you get some on you, you can wash it off with soap and water within 20 minutes, and then keep that area exposed from sunlight. So this isn't like terrible, this is manageable, but you have to know. The dry stalks aren't poisonous because the sap has the poison. And it's not poisonous after it dries on your equipment for a while. But all parts of the living green plant are poisonous. So this is where it was in 2024. This is from EdMaps, which is publicly available data. You'll see some of the little dots have green and yellow and blue. The yellow is where it's being controlled, predominantly by our group. The blue and the green is where it's been removed. And most of the dots in Southern Ontario are red, meaning that they've been identified and nothing's being done. So the seed transportation is the key to population spread. The seeds float. They can float for 72 hours. Typically they don't. They usually sink long before that. They can travel with the currents. So in flood conditions, that can be 25 kilometers per hour. They only go downstream. High water eddies and flow obstructions are the key to where they eddy out and make a new population. If they end up on a gravelly slope or a steep slope, they'll be washed away and they won't grow. But if they end up in a spot that's already moist, maybe a confluence of a creek or in a marshy area or floodplain, then they can grow there. Reproduction occurs in the second year or possibly the third year, and some seeds will remain dormant in the soil for many years. Very few are relocated by rodents. Some turkeys move them, and they move a kilometer or so. The seeds can be moved a kilometer or so by deer. It gets stuck on their fur. So here's a typical picture of removing the seeds in July. This day would have been probably 30 degrees, so it's hot. You have to wear the hazmat suit to be protected from the sap, so it takes a while. You only get about 2 hours, and then you're done for the day. And these seeds are removed, bagged, and taken off to the landfill for destruction. This is what we had in 2018. There's just a few populations. I'm going to move through the different years here, sort of like a movie. 2019, we had more. 2022, 2021, 2022, 2023. And the next picture, 2024, we changed the scale. So far, we've been looking at the Grand River watershed, specifically parsed so the rest of Ontario doesn't show. Now I'm going to show you Brant County. So the dots are a little more spread out. Again, the yellow ones are showing where there's control. Most of these dots have been confirmed. There are very few that are false reports. And they're spread a little further away from the river here because we believe it's the deer have been moving them. So in 2022, we managed to collect enough data to do a mathematical modeling and determine what the exponential growth rate was. And then we put some limits on there so we have a max and min around the data. Then if we extend that out to the population saturation, we determined the saturation would be 1 plant every 10 meters. So 100 plants per kilometer. And that would occur at around 2029, would be when we'd have 50% of the river would be covered with giant hogweed. So if you're walking between your boat and the shore or going fishing, you got about a 50% chance of running into a giant hogweed in 2029. So presently we're at the beginning of the invasion, which is a great place to be because it's efficient to try and control it now. Once it gets worse, it costs more. It's about 2 to 5 times more per year that we delay the control process. This is a sequence of 8 pictures of the Grand River, just showing Brant County, and all the little red dots show you where the populations are. So this starts in Glen Morris and we're going downstream. You can see there's a lot. There's very few areas. There's one area here that's not busy. That used to be the golf course, so they kept that fairly well cleaned, but now it's not a golf course anymore and the plants are populating up again. In the city, there's very few because residents take care of them. When they see some weird thing on the grass, they fix it. Then we get back out into the countryside again, they get bigger, more populated. And then in the city of Brantford, there's very few. So the question is, what do we do about it? If we're going to lead the population, we need to decide, first of all, do we want to have free access to and from the river? If so, then we have steps to take. If we don't care if the plants take over, then we're fine, we're done. My recommendation is that we try and maintain access to the river, to and from. And to do that, we need to inform every landowner on the riverside that these plants exist, what they look like, and how to take care of them. We should insist that all these landowners look in April and in May and July for these plants. There's no point looking in June because you can't see them. They're hiding amongst the other vegetation. We need to encourage plant removal and seed removal. We need to find more exterminators because presently in this area there are only 3 exterminators that will deal with this. And we need to consider incentive programs like taxes or rebates or bounties or something, maybe writing an order in the Invasive Species Act. There's options. So we need to look into these options and see if we can come up with something. And that's essentially what I have to say, other than I'd like to congratulate Brant County for being proactive, because Brant County is one of the few counties that has a bylaw that can be used for this and that is taking and paying attention to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for the presenter? Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of your first slides says you were spot spraying. What do you use? Mind me asking?
For which?
Spot spraying.
Oh, generally we use Roundup, but we don't take. We prefer to avoid using, but when we do, it's Roundup, and you can also inject Roundup, which is a better technique as well.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Mr. Kemp. Mr. Kemp, I want to ask you, because you're here. Does the GRCA, are they effectively getting rid of the hogweed on their properties?
You use the word effectively.
Okay, I think it's
skip that one. Yes, they are taking care of it on their properties. They focus on the public access properties. They have a lot of property that's in remote areas, and I don't think they have enough budget to deal with the remote areas effectively. But they are definitely taking care of their populations on their public properties.
Okay, and then the last question I have for you is, you showed us a map of the where a lot of them were. Is the bulk of them on private property or public property, such as county-owned land or GRCA land or other lands?
That's hard to say. I can say that the seeds or the weeds grow within about 10 meters of the water line. So 10 meters in an inland. And they don't particularly care who owns the property, and they don't care where the borders are. Upstream, say the Kitchener area, it's a little worse. It's moving this way. The last population in Brant County that we found is between the water treatment plant and the dump. And then there's a big space from there down towards Six Nations where there aren't any. So the population is moving downstream. So we're intending or expecting a kind of a deluge from upstream, and Six Nations is expecting to get seeds from Brant County.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Can I get a mover so that we can, Councillor Pierce and Councillor Kyle, thank you, just so that we can put it on the floor that we can decide what to do with it. Any other questions? Seeing none, does Councillor want to just receive it as information, or Councillor Coleman?
Move to receive, Mr. Mayor.
You seeking a seconder? Councillor Pierce? Any other questions? Councillor Miller?
Yeah, I know we've talked about this before, and I know we've allocated resources, and as the speaker has pointed out, we have a bylaw to kind of work on this. But is it possible to get an update on what we are spending on it, what we're doing to address it? Because I think we would all do with a refresher on that. So maybe on a Friday file. Or
Thank you, through your worship. Yeah, I don't have those figures off the top of my head, but we can certainly get you a Friday file on that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's on the floor to receive as information. It's got a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 5.2 on the agenda is Mr. Haggard from the Legion. And if you would just like to come up, Roy, and state your name and your address for the clerk. I'm sure we have it somewhere, but it would be good to be refreshed. I think we have it.
McDonald. He is our first vice president at Branch 29 Legion and a valued member. Before I come up and before I started, this is a sound meter, decibel meter. We have it at the branch. We use it every time we have music. it's a pretty simple operation. Since I turned it on, the decibel levels have gone between 36 decibels and 77 decibels. So it's up and down all the time. And it's constant. You can set it for maximum, minimum, whatever you want, really. They're not expensive. I think this was $50, but it gives us an idea. And since we've had some concerns, we bought this. Anyway, to why I'm here and why we're here. Mr. Mayor, members of council, county staff. First off, during the course of the processing of this application, if I personally have misspoke or upset a member of staff, I truly apologize. Having spent 26 years sitting in one of these chairs, I know better, and I do apologize. We are extremely pleased to receive the exemption that we requested for the noise bylaw, and has been approved, and we are thankful that you did so. Along with the thanks, we have some concerns, and our concern is what led us, I believe, respectfully, to where we are in the first place. Fundamentally, communication. I think that's what a big issue was. Things were done and no communication. The conditions of approval, as you've probably read, are the volume of music. You must remember, it's one single guitar player on a small amp. It's not a band. And it's authorized by staff, deemed to turn or to request the music be turned down to a specific level at their discretion. That's one of our concerns, because I don't know how many bylaw officers you have, and I don't know how many OPP officers you have that could be involved, and each one of those persons has probably a different opinion on what is what. So it's a bit of a concern on that level. And if you go into the letter, the repercussions are concerning. So we ask, what is deemed appropriate? With all those people, we suggest there's a lot of opinion. Where an exemption is granted and there's violation of the exemption can be pulled. And we don't want that to happen again. It already happened once. It cost us $6,000. We need to make sure there's communication. We're very concerned about that. The conditions of the letter talk about the breach in terms of conditions, renders, and the exemption null and void. We question why such as the City of Toronto, included decibel levels in their noise bylaw, and that we cannot. This would provide a much more consistent perspective on site versus staff trying to determine what is appropriate on a multi-person basis. Having received this, I got in contact with Amanda Payne, sent her a email, making sure she understood we were coming tonight, and that we appreciated the results, and we were just trying to open some conversation on this level. The clause is primarily used to, she says, the conditions of approval are standard. Noise is subjective, as decibel levels for music varies based on environment and weather conditions. Yes, may or may not be. The clause is primarily used to ensure that if complaints are received, we have the ability to work with you on the volume of level and adjust the speaker locations, etc., to prevent further complaints, rather than give you the alternative of shutting it off and issuing a charge without exemption. That's primarily what we were looking for. We're looking for communication, that if there is a complaint, we cannot, I know, everyone is different. Can't please 100% of the people 100% of the time. And I'm truly expecting someone to a complaint. Although we had a neighborhood meeting and it was a good result, we had people out and so on and so on and so forth. I'm expecting somebody's not going to be happy at some point in time. Communication to us is let us know what's happening. If there's a problem, let us know. We'll fix it. But don't shut us down for one person in a neighborhood of, what, 400 or 500? We will use our sound meter to check sound levels at every event and monitor. And we anticipate that we will also have discussions with our neighbors who supported the meeting very much so. So we're happy to be here. We just want you to know that we do have those concerns. We're going to work to our part, and we're asking that staff and council work with us on those levels. So I thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to bring our concerns forward and look forward to working with council and staff going forward into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. And thank you for the apology. I know that sometimes we get heated and we say things we wish we hadn't said maybe as loudly as we say them. But I appreciate the fact that
Can't see you.
you've brought it back up. So thank you for that. Can I get a motion to move down the floor and talk about it? Councillor House, Councillor Oakley. Thank you. Are there any questions to Roy? Yeah, Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Roy. I came into this with 2 or 3 specific questions that I wanted to ask, and they were related to, you know, are there always conditions of approval attached to these approvals? The issue about specifying a decibel level, and the communication request, the openness to be able to reach out to you guys or staff, bylaw staff, to reach out to you guys to change the speaker location or turn it down, and I think what you just said, your most recent interaction with staff answered all 3 of those. They answered them for me, but my question is, did they answer them sufficiently for you?
Well, you know, we would like to see more investigation into decibel level. You can appreciate if all of you people come over and said, is this music too loud?
Right.
Or not loud enough? Or just right?
Yeah.
You'd probably have 10 different answers. And that's a problem. We're not looking for the golden answer or anything like that, but we're looking to be fair. We understand, and through our meeting with the neighbors, I think we have 18, 19 households out from the area, which we thought was pretty good. Good conversation. You were there. Lucas was there. They enjoy the music.
Oh yeah.
You know, so we're not trying to we don't put a rock band out there. It's a single guitar player that is in the decibel level that I just talked about, 50 to 70 decibels. And if 50 to 70 decibels are in here, that's not too loud. You know, so I would hope we could get some more conversation going on the subject. I'm not pushing it real hard because I know where we're at and I know what we can do. And I want the council to understand that we are very appreciative of you looking over this whole thing over, what, 6-7 months from when this all took place in June. So, you know, we appreciate that. And the Legion is, like everything, is trying to do its job. And when you lose financially $6,000 over one fundraiser, it's pretty substantial. And over the course of the year, we probably donate, I don't know, $40,000, $50,000, something like that. So we're not for profit. We're here to do a job. We try to do that job. We're just looking for the help or assistance to do that job. So we'll work with it. And I know now who to work with.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Oakley?
Um,
Sleep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, sort of along these lines, where I can appreciate taking the angle of working within, defining as a reasonable volume, for the exemption. But I can also understand the concern that the Legion may have, and also acknowledging that most recently there was an event last week for Paris Drinks Fest announcing their headliners, and they're, I believe, intending on locating their event at Sylaps again, and certainly applying for a noise exemption when it comes to there, where organizations like the Legion, like Noisemaker, might be looking for something more quantitative rather than qualitative to ensure that they have a certainty to know that they're within whatever reasonable limits they are looking to stay within, whether it's with a noise exemption or without a noise exemption, what level they can go up to. So I would really like to see us look into something more quantitative, like a decibel level, versus a more qualitative method, even though it is more flexible. I think providing that certainty is of value.
If I could just add to that, Mr. Mayor, what do they call that at the arena again?
Decibel level?
Syllabs.
Oh,
Yeah.
Syllabs.
Drink Fest, whatever it is. You cannot believe how many phone calls I get and my members get that they can do that over there and we can't play a guitar over here. And believe me, we understand and we appreciate what County Council has done for us over the last 3, 4, 5 years. They've been exceptionally supportive. We try to talk to them to say, whoa, 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 back up, back up, back up. And they want to blame you, but there's no reason to blame you because it's in the bylaw that's there, and I understand. You just don't wave your magic finger and it's gone. I understand that. They don't understand that. So we are constantly defending council, and we're not afraid to do that. But it just keeps coming and coming and coming, and it's pretty frustrating at times. So we'll try to do our job. We hope that we can count on you to do your job. That's all we're asking.
Councillor Oakley, do you want to tack something on to the motion to send it back to staff for review?
Through you, Farm. No, not at this time. I believe it should be sufficient just as a staff direction to look into that. And, yeah.
So we have it on the floor. It's been seconded. Is there any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Roy.
Thank you.
The third thing on the, or number 5.3 on the agenda is Chantal Campbell. I believe she's online.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me?
Oh, you sound a little garbly there.
Is this any better? Is this clear?
It's getting a little more clear. Try something else.
Okay. I want to just, I've got my headset on. Maybe I'll just remove that.
Okay.
Is this any better?
That's better.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you very much for having me. It's my first time attending a meeting like this. I did put forth a proclamation, and I'm here in the event that there are any questions, comments, or concerns. I don't have much extra to add. I think the application was quite wholesome for the proclamation and flag raising, and I'm just here in the event that any members or anyone have any questions or concerns for me.
Thank you. This is for the proclamation and flag raising for Black History Month, which is this month. So
that is correct, yes.
If this goes well tonight, we'll be raising the flag tomorrow, only for a few days, but it was a bit of a flaw in the process. So we would have obviously done it earlier had things fallen into place a little bit better. So I'm looking for a motion to put it on the floor. Councillor House, thank you, and Councillor Kyle, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? I think I needed to say that it would have been brought to us earlier if everything were equal. So if council decides this is a good thing to do, then we would raise the flag tomorrow and it would be up till the end of the month.
Yes, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? There you go. We'll fly the flag tomorrow morning to the end of the month.
Excellent. Thank you so much for everybody, and thank you to Bryan County. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 6 on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes from the previous meeting. Councillor McAlpine.
Moved by myself and second by Councillor Oakley that the minutes from the County of Brant Council meeting of January 28th, 2025 be approved.
Are there any questions about that set of minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor to receive? Opposed and carried? Thank you. Business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, we'll go right on to 8.1, which is consent items. Consent items to be approved. The first one is 25 Oakland Child Care Center. Elise, and who's going to, it's Kathy's here. Do you want to speak to it or just let it go through as, okay. So it's in front of you as to what we're doing here. I need a mover to get it on the floor. Councillor Pierce and Councillor Coleman. It's on the floor. Everyone's clear. Councillor Miller.
Just one question for me, Mr. Mayor, and that's we're looking for approval, but we don't, and then it goes to the Ministry of Education. They have to look at it and give their stamp of approval. How do we just, and I know Kathy kind of answered in an email, but how do we guarantee that the tender, when it goes out, doesn't go over what we've budgeted for? How do we protect the county's interests?
Who knows the answer to Councillor Miller's question?
So through the mayor, we've kind of taken a look since we've done our drawings. We think our budget's still adequate, but if for some reason it did come over, we'd come back to council with a report. So.
And that's all I need to hear. Thank you.
Councillor Garneau first, and then Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a comment, if I may, on behalf of some residents who have come forward with concerns. And what I wanted to do was acknowledge that for some folks, when we made the decision to reinvest in the hall, this wasn't maybe the path that they saw unfolding. And there has been a lot of dialogue, so I want to acknowledge staff in community services because they have responded to many, many questions from the hall committee and others in the community so that everyone can help understand why this is moving forward the way that it is. It is a bit of a change in perhaps how community facilities have been used in the past and that we're partnering with a business here. But I think that we're moving in the right direction because it's also going to bring childcare spaces and jobs to our community. And I do think we found the right balance in terms of ensuring that the childcare center can operate as it needs to while also keeping space available for community residents to make reservations. So I do both want to acknowledge that there are still some concerns, but I'm confident that we're moving through those with staff. And I know the residents have appreciated the dialogue. So thank you to everybody who's been involved with this.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just a quick question. I guess it's on page 48 when it talks about the sum of $26,640 annually for the first year term. How did we come up with that price?
She thought she was going to get away with not having.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. We did look at the market value for this type of operation for commercial operations, and we found that that ranged from $12 to $23 a square foot on average. And so we landed somewhere in the middle around $18.41 for this lease.
Okay, I'm just curious. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8.1.1.1 is comments received by Councillor Gatward, or Joan Gatward, sorry. Ex-Councillor Joan Gatward. So that's all been taken care of. 8.1.2 is the GRSN tender award, and I need a mover to put it on the floor. Councillor Oakley and Councillor Kyle. It's on the floor. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Oakley?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just to staff. Just reading this here, so we're looking to approve a bid. It's just about $6.5 million, and the remaining budget between 2024 and 2025 is just under $25 million. There's an asterisk here saying that this is to fund several projects. So acknowledging that's to fund several projects. Is this about where we'd expect this particular portion of the project to land? Or is it over, under, like, are we looking like we're gonna have enough budget within this 25 million to hit the remaining projects that are allocated for here?
Through the mayor to Councillor Oakley. So down the report there, you can see that the engineer's estimate for this portion of the project was 6.3 million, and then the budget we're asking you to approve is 6.7 million. So that's in the ballpark for sure. As you can see, the other tenders are higher. So, but you can only accept one of them. So it's actually pretty good. As far as the other projects, we're still in the development portion of them. So we don't really have engineers' estimates on them. We have the preliminary estimates as we develop them, but they progress as. So we're relatively happy with this one as it sits right now.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. A couple quick questions if I could. So when it talks, it goes through the internal notice of position vacancy, and it's got the recommendations, qualifications, all that kind of stuff. It says annual salary range between 86 and 100, and it's a job grade 8, which is all fine and dandy. It is what it is. But at the very top of the report, it says that in a that a 1 year contract position be approved at the cost of 125,000. Trying to understand the discrepancy.
Thank you, through your worship. So that our job bands all have a range of various steps. So based on the qualifications of the position, it could be up to the maximum. It just depends on the candidates we get. So we wanted to include the high end. You know, if it comes in lower, it would certainly be lower, but that would be the maximum.
Right, but unless I'm misreading it. So at the top of it, it says that a 1 year contract position, the downtown construction liaison, be approved at the cost of 125,000. And then down in the job description and all that, the salary range is from 80 to 100. So there's a $25,000 discrepancy there. I'm just trying to make heads or tails of
it. Through the mayor, I believe the difference between the two is other parts of things that aren't included in the actual salary. So if we have to get a laptop, I don't know, if vacation, there's other things that would not be accounted in the actual per hourly pay.
Okay.
So if you can remember from like other parts when we did the decision packages, and you can see like there's the whole cost, there would be other lines in it that include for the entire thing. I think there's things like that would be included in that 120 that aren't included, that are beyond the actual hourly pay as per what the...
No, I appreciate that explanation. Thank you. And just one last one, if I could, Mr. Mayor. I know there's been talk, and it says in here, if you look on page, what page is it here? 73, I guess, when it's got the proposed project phases. And it talks of, obviously, West River Street, and then it talks of phase 2A from the Nith River Bridge to Mechanic Street, and 2B Grand River Street north between. I know there's been some conversation as to which end we're going to start at. So are we for sure starting at the? I know it's kind of been discussed and up in the air. I just want to. Do we know we're confirming we are starting at the Nith Bridge end?
Through the mayor to Councillor Pierce, we don't know yet, only because until the report is approved, we can't contact the contractor to start discussing what their actual schedule is. We believe at least that what we have proposed as phase 1 likely will occur first.
Okay.
Because for them to change, there's items and things that they need to order that will take time to get made. Like the siphon chamber right beside the bridge, if they were to try to change and wanted to start at the low end, that would still take a while to do. So at least if they start with what we have as phase 1, they can get to work right away with minimal impacts, and then they may change. But we will have that conversation in the next couple weeks with them, and then be able to report back if there are any changes in what we know at that time.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate that. Because there's a lot of eyes and ears in the community on this, so I just want to make sure that you know, if we say that this is where it's gonna be and then it's there, it'll start off in a negative, and I don't want that because it's gonna be all positive, so that's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to add to that, Mark's correct. You know, until we get an award in place, we can't have those conversations on timing. They will happen right away, and as soon as they are, we'll make sure that we update the webpage and all the public information with that. So Adam's already going to be working on that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Bell, and then back to Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff. This is a 250 metre long section of road, I think. So I'm told by Rob that we should get that into proper context. I think he's right. But is this 250 metre section of road that has utilities buried underneath it that have been there maybe 60 years? Not to mention there might be an old water course that runs across. We've had some experience lately of surprises working in this kind of environment. And I look at John Noble Home, where we got surprised to the tune of another $2 million, or maybe a little less now. We got surprised at 177 Colburn Street, building an affordable housing project where we missed the fact that there was contaminated land that needed to be dealt with to begin with. And most recently, West River Street, which should have been finished last year, is now going on to this year because of things we learned as we were working the project last year. So my question really is, how firm is the contract? Is it a lump sum based on the drawings we've given to the contractor? And if it is, what percentage of contingency have we added on in our own project management?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bell, it's a unit price contract, so it's not a lump sum. So whatever the work that they do, they get paid for based on the prices that they submitted in the contract. We did include a lot of language in the contract around the idea that we know there's the potential for unknowns underground. We don't think as much within what would be the traveled portion of the road, but once you get underneath the sidewalk towards the buildings, we're replacing electrical services to every building as a part of the complete electrical replacement downtown, like all the hydro replacement. So we don't really know what's going on with the foundations and what we'll find when we go and replace water services, sanitary services, and everything along those lines. If they go underneath footings or if they go through a wall, we realize this. We wrote in the contract as such. We've put items in the contract to try to mitigate as much of this as possible with different ways to do it. The hydro servicing contract is through Grand Bridge. They are selecting their contractor to do it. Their contractor will be a subcontract to this contract. It's written in there so that they can work at the same time, so we don't run into constructor issues. That work is being done as you give us the invoice plus here's a management fee for that portion, so at least that cost is maintained or managed as well. So we have thought about a lot of things to try the best we can to manage this, with still the idea that there could be some unknowns underneath the ground.
So this figure that we see here is based on quantities that we've given to the contractor, and I understand then the quantities might vary and the price might come out differently, but we have a mechanism for calculating.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Miller.
One question, Mr. Mayor. That 50% from the Rural Economic Development Program, has that already been awarded? Did we get that? We did? That's really good because we've applied in a few other things and never got it. So I'm not quite sure how we get it ahead of time, but okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to staff, more of just a comment. One of the things that really struck me when I opened up and was reading through this report is this map. And I think I would love to see this type of thing for more of our projects that really clearly lays out with colors and timing and that type of thing, that I think it's easy and digestible for people to understand, even if it does change as things go. I really like this, so kudos to whoever came up with this graphic.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, concerns? One way of looking at Councillor Bell, if we hit quicksand, it'll be much cheaper. So there's always a good side to everything. So thank you very much for coming up and explaining that. It's on the floor. It has a motion. It has a mover. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.2 is consent items to be received. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor? Councillor Garneau and Councillor Pierce. In front of you, you have the consent items 8.2.1 through 8.2.9. Does anyone want anything separated? Councillor Miller.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the first one and the last one.
First one and the last one. Anybody else? Okay, we'll call the vote on everything but number one. Oh, Councillor Pierce.
I guess it's 6 and 7.
6 and 7. Yep, 6 and 7. So what we'll do then is is there anybody else? No. So we'll call the vote on 8.2.2, 8.2.3, 8.2.4, 8.2.5, 8.2.8. All those in favor to receive? Thank you. And we'll go back to 8.2.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's more of a budget question, but so reading the minutes in 2025, we had provincial funding of $1,023,000 from the province for the 2025 OPP budget. And I believe, just if staff can confirm, that is a one-time funding because there was such a large increase?
Cindy will know that.
Through the mayor's, Councillor Miller, at this time, it's one-time funding. We do not know what is planned for future budget years at this point.
Okay, so when we are trying to guesstimate budgeting for next year, we would have to start off at $1 million in the hole, I'm guessing.
Through the mayor, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions to 8.2.1? All those in favor? Thank you. We don't have a mover for 8.2.1. Councillor Miller and Councillor Oakley. All those in favor to receive? Thank you. We'll go to 8.2.6. Who separated that? Councillor Pierce.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's just in regards to the proposed U.S. tariffs and Canadian goods. It's kind of I feel it's a well-written letter, and I'm just wondering if council would write their own letter along the same lines and send it to the same appropriate people. I'd throw that on the floor as a motion and looking for a seconder.
Okay, looking for a seconder. Councillor Oakley's got it seconded. Conversation around it. Councillor Oakley?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I absolutely agree with Councillor Pierce here that we could write our own letter here. I think it's well written, the one from Peterborough County. Funnily enough, I was following through with the conversations that the Premier was having first time around when we were looking like we were going to get hit by the tariffs, talking about how province was going to go this direction, how they were looking for all 444 municipalities to do so, which is a great idea, except we don't have the tools to be able to do so. So it'd be nice to be able to advocate to the province and the federal government to give us the tools to be able to specifically look to select for Canadian-made goods where we can.
Thank you. Any other comments, concerns? If I could just have the clerk read back exactly what we're voting on, please.
Just to, do you want me to repeat? Yeah, just if we could kind of send a letter on behalf of Brant County Council, as Peterborough County has, to the all of those that are listed in there, to the Prime Minister, the Premier, and all those listed below, that we agree and feel the same.
Perfect. Councillor Kyle?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick note. I did notice in the list they've got the chair of the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, so we may want to consider Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, either in addition or instead of.
Good call. Thank you.
Anybody else? It's on the floor. It has a seconder. All those in favor of writing the letter of support? Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Mayor, we've lost signal. I don't know whether you want to continue the meeting.
Gary?
I'm working on it right now.
We've gone blank. Put a tape in.
Tariffs.
Do you want us to stop here, or are we still?
No, we're still rolling. It's just the podium and the Zoom. Zoom is going as well. They can likely hear us. It's just the video feed in the room is down.
So they can't see us. They can only hear us.
They can see us. The camera is working. Yeah.
Clerk just showed me a picture. They can see us. I just waited. It's just not working in the room. It's not working in the room here. Oh, there you go. Okay, 8.2. We have to vote on that. It's on the floor. It has a second. We just did.
We did.
Sorry. 8.2.7.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. This letter from the town of Lincoln. I'm not sure if we could get any of this for our infrastructure, because we've got a whole lot of infrastructure work happening in the county, and if we could get any of this, that would it would be fantastic. So I'm not sure if staff has seen this and able to, I'd put a motion on that we send a letter to see what we can get. If there's money out there and they're using it for infrastructure, we're doing a lot of that.
There you go. Councillor Pierce has put a motion on the floor. Looking for a seconder. Councillor Kyle. So let me understand, we're just going to put a letter like this to the same.
Yeah, and again, it's another well-written letter, and I think if there's a pot there, why shouldn't we get our part?
Absolutely. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.2.9, John Noble Home Committee of Management. Question. Councillor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think this was the one, 7.1, where they had a presentation at that meeting regarding the Belcourt redevelopment project. Now, I had two questions. One was, how much is it over budget? And Councillor Bell, you did allude to it. It was close to $2 million. So on that matter, do we know how that's going to be paid for? And they have possibly a surplus. It looked like. Will they be putting the surplus towards that? That's the first question.
Now, it's okay if I talk to that, I guess?
So we'll let him speak
okay,
first, then we'll come to Councillor McAlpine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So at this point, even with that overage, the project is still within the budget. It's just when the furniture fixing and equipment come forward, when we get those final numbers, we'll know the total of where we're at with the project, and we'll be bringing a report forward. We have been looking internally at some funding options, so.
Okay, that's a good answer. And then the second question, again, relating to the Belcourt redevelopment. In the minutes, it says the revised substantial completion date is November 28, 2025, obviously later this year. So we're hoping the plan is to have most of it done by that date. How far behind schedule was this? When was this originally supposed to be open, and when do we expect it to start being used? Do we know those?
Okay, so we'll let Councillor McAlpine take it from Councillor Bell to Councillor McAlpine. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so we're approximately a year behind at this point, and if everything goes according to plan, right now, substantial completion should be completed by end of November, with the FF&E going in December and end of January starting to move in patients is the current plan. So roughly 1 year from now.
Okay, I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Any other questions about 8.2.9? I need a motion to get it on the floor so we can vote on it. Councillor McAlpine. Yep. And Councillor Oakley. No other questions for Councillor McAlpine? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Takes us to committee reports, number 9. We've done all those that we want to vote.
Yep.
Okay, takes us to number 9 on the agenda, which is committee reports. Policy Development Committee report, Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move by myself, second by Councillor Carnell, that the Policy Development Committee report of February 4th, 2025 be approved, noting there was 9 items.
Thank you. Are there any questions to Councillor Coleman on his report, Councillor Oakley?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to suggest an amendment to item 9 on the report.
Okay.
I would like to see, provided I get a seconder, amend the second clause such that it reads, and that RPT-0020-25 County Brant Municipal Accommodation Study and Maxwell be tabled for further review from staff to tabled until the March 25th, 2025 council meeting.
Do you want to explain why you want to do that?
Certainly. At that time, when we had the conversation, there was concerns about how we were having the conversation and looking to make a decision before budget. We're now dealing with budget this evening, as well as the Friday file that we received later on from staff. I think there was a fundamental misunderstanding of what we were actually committing to by making a decision on that study. So I see no reason why we should be essentially indefinitely tabling that report when we are more than capable of making a decision in March.
Anyone else want to comment on that? Is there any problems with staff moving it to the?
Has he got a seconder?
Got a second? I'm sorry? Yeah, there's a Councillor. Was it you? Yeah, Councillor Kyle, I thought. Anyway, anybody else have any concerns to Lucas's amendment? No. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Any other questions to Councillor Coleman's report? Knowing it's a very long report, there's a lot in it. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 9.2 on the agenda is Committee of the Whole. Councillor Howes, you have that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pierce that the Committee of the Whole report of January 16th, January 22nd, and February 6th, 2025 be approved.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Howes on the report? Councillor Miller, you're first.
Yeah, well, I'd like to make a couple of amendments, Mr. Mayor.
Right.
Okay. I'm obviously, I don't want to get into relitigating every single decision package, but I would, if I get a seconder, I'll speak to it. But
let's get your seconder first.
Well, now I got to put it
what number?
first. Anyways, the amendment is that the climate action specialist position be removed from the budget, and that staff liaise with the City of Brantford staff as to their interest in sharing their climate action specialist on a cost-sharing basis, similar to the other cost-sharing agreements we have with the city. And if I get a seconder, I will gladly speak.
Looking for a seconder. Councillor Coleman. Any other comments? Yeah. No. Councillor Miller.
Yeah. You know, they always say if you watch the pennies, the dollars take care of themselves. I think everybody understands we have a lot of dollars we need for the capital projects coming down the pipeline. Some of which have been covered in the long-term financial plan. Quite a few that have not. So we are a community of 40,000, give or take. I have a hard time understanding why we, of a municipality of this size, smallish, would need a full-time climate action specialist. We have other similar positions where we need certain positions filled, but they're not full-time. For example, we have an emergency manager, that's part-time. We have source water protection, that's a requirement. We contract that out. So I really question the need for a county, for a municipality of our size to be funding a full-time climate action specialist. I understand, this is my understanding, that the city would be amenable to sharing that position. And there's benefits to that as well. I think if you're looking at the region, Brant County and Brantford as a whole, if you take that view, I think there's some real synergies that we can get from this person, and whether that's looking at a possible organics program that we share with them, public transportation, a few other things. So that's my my suggested amendment, that we do go with a climate action specialist, but we share that position with the city of Brantford, which already has one, or at least we entered into talks with them. So,
any other comments about all of that? So the complete price of that staff member leaves this page, and what do we replace it with, Councillor Miller?
well, in theory, it wouldn't leave the page. It would go down to whatever our cost sharing is, 27, 28, 29, 30%, something like that.
So you've spoken with the city and they're okay with this?
I've spoken to a certain member of the city who would make it, who could make it happen. Let's put it that way.
Councillor Bell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't support that. My experience in sharing facilities with the city is that we don't get our money's worth. And I can't imagine we would be high on their priority list. And I do think, as I said before, that there are real opportunities that we're not following up on at the moment, for which we do need a full-time specialist. I think if in 2 years' time you find that he's not paid his way, then let him go, or let her go. But I think the opportunities are there to be taken.
Thank you. Are there any other comments, Councillor Oakley?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I won't be overly verbose. I largely agree with Councillor Bell here. I think this position will pay for itself in time.
Thank you. Any other comments, Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And not, this comment isn't in support or against the idea, but it just, on the money side of it, that Brantford's climate action specialist earns this much money, and that the calculation would be 32% of that. So like that's a bit of a gray area. I think we would just have to be conscious of. Thanks. Should it be approved?
Any other comments, concerns before we call the motion on the amendment? Councillor McAlpine?
Just echoing what's already been said, likewise, I think that if we were trying to share it, I think it would be very difficult to get our own money's worth. I think that we're at a stage now where we need to look at things a lot closer, and there is money to be saved, and I think it is something that in 2 years it'd be worth reviewing and seeing where we're at and whether it has been a good option for the counties. So I will not be in support.
Councillor Kyle, did you have a question? No? You're okay. Anyone else? Any other comments? Councillor Chambers?
Just clarification, was this a contract position? We're saying that we can get rid of it after a year if we don't think it's valuable, or 2 years. It's not a contract position, it's a full-time position. So getting rid of somebody after you hire them is not as easy as saying, well, we don't need you anymore. And so it's not a contract position, is that right?
No, it's a hire, but I mean, you can always review people's performance. We do that with everyone else. Everyone gets a performance review. Councillor Miller?
If we are in agreements with the city where we're not feeling we're getting our value, that is on us. Okay, I think we are, as far as the John Noble home goes. I would say we are as far as the ambulance goes. This would be the same thing. So it's incumbent upon us to do it. And like I say, I think there's real value in somebody looking at it as a region. I'd love to see that happen. So, anyways, I've spoken to it.
Yeah. So anyone else want to speak to it? It's clear what we're voting on. All those in favor of the resolution or of the amendment? Opposed? Fails. So we'll go back to the original motion. Councillor Garneau and Councillor Kyle.
Sorry, I think Councillor Kyle had her hand up first.
Kyle and then Councillor Garneau.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to maybe take the opposite approach of Councillor Miller, and I would like to revisit one of the decision packages that was not included, and that is the Fire Services Communication Specialist. So if I were to get a seconder for that, then I would speak to that.
Yeah, Councillor Kyle needs a seconder, and she's got one in Councillor Coleman. Okay, do you want to explain what you're thinking?
Sure. I really, after a lot of reflection, I do think that this was one that we missed, that I think is critical to maintaining our fire service and getting it on track. So my understanding, and perhaps our CAO could maybe speak to it, but my understanding is that including this would not impact the bottom line. So I'm hoping we could get some agreement around this table to include this position back in the report.
Okay, we'll let Allison speak to that.
Through you, your worship. So obviously there'll be the cost of the position, but it won't affect our overall tax levy this year. No.
Any questions? Councillor Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was going to bring this up, so I'm glad Councillor Kyle got to it first. I did not support it that day, but I have changed my mind, and I do think it's an important issue that we need to deal with in our fire services.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Councillor Pierce?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. And yeah, I fully support putting this back in. I did support it that day. It was turned down, but that's fine. I think the whole aspect of this position for the communication between our stations and between our firefighters and stuff like that, that's crucial. And as we expand and as we get bigger, I think that's a key position that it's going to, you talk about things paying for themselves, and, this year it might not be a monetary payment that it's going to bring, but I think the overall morale that it's going to boost within our fire services, you can't put a dollar value on that. So I'm in full support of bringing this back in.
Councillor Howes?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Likewise, I agree with everything that's been said so far. I just wanted to get a little bit of clarification from the CAO. Can you just explain how, I can't remember what the actual dollar amount was, but we know it's 70-something thousand dollars. How does that not move the needle? Is it just because it's by itself less than 1% or something?
Through the mayor to Councillor House. So roughly, I think we were talking around 800,000 would equal to about 1%. So it is going to be a fraction, but it's not going to change it to 6.2, that kind of thing.
Any other questions? I also agree that it's perfect timing for this position. I know we have a fairly new chief, and we have different personalities at every fire hall around the county, different standards, different goals, different concerns, and I think this will just take a little bit of heat off the relationship with the chief and all the different detachment chiefs. I think it's just the right thing for us to do to make his job a little easier and to give him some administration help too. It's a big job to be the chief of a lot of police or fire stations, and I think it's great that we've revisited it. Are there any concerns, Councillor Chambers?
I just want to say I recognize the value of the position, and don't get me wrong, and I would normally support it, but I have a hard time supporting adding to a budget that I can't support in the first place. So I'm not going to support it. As it stands now, I do not support the recommendation, and I'm not going to add to something that I don't support. So.
Okay, that's only fair. That's your vote.
If I could find a mitigating offset and a more realistic percentage increase, I might support these kind of things. But when we're looking at the levy increase that is proposed is over what it should be in my estimation, and continues to get worse instead of better. So if there's a way you can mitigate some of the costs associated with these things, then I can support it. But otherwise, I'm not going to add to something that is already too much, in my opinion.
Allison?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Bailey, to council. Just got confirmation from finance staff. So if it was added in extra, it would be a 0.1%.
Okay. We're clear on what we're voting on. We're going to add the position of the liaison between the chief and the fire halls. Yeah, that's it. I'm not sure what the job description will actually be yet, because we don't have one and we don't know who is going to get it. So, sorry? Communications, yeah. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. Anything else for the Councillor Coleman's, Councillor Miller?
Another amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Another amendment?
And it's not it's not a decision package, but, having said that, I wasn't aware of this till this, Heather Boyd did a presentation last time. So, it's budget related, and again, it goes back to if we watch the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. So I would like to make a motion to the budget overall that committee members of the Government Relations Committee, excluding the mayor, have their conference budget reduced to the same level as other members of council. And I'll speak to it if I get a seconder for that.
Seconded. Councillor Garneau is your seconder. If you want to keep talking about it, Councillor Miller.
Well, I just thinking about it because we did have that discussion after Roma, and it come up that it's not necessary for Government Relations Committee members to attend every single conference and attend all the delegations. And so on that note, I mean, I appreciate the work that they do looking into who we should be meeting with and advocating for county priorities. At the same time, like I say, they don't have to go to every conference. They don't have to go to every delegation. So,
any other comments? Councillor McAlpine?
I think that at this point, I think it's important that we have those relationships and that we have people that are willing to be dedicated to doing the work that's required. And I think we are seeing some the feedback that we're getting in the grants that we've received recently, say the 2 schools, and keeping us top of mind in the when we go to these conferences, I think is very helpful, and I think it's important that we have people that are willing and dedicated to do that extra amount of work. So that's why I'm in favor of allowing them to have that increased budget. So,
Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, can I get some sort of idea of how much we're talking here? Do we know?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Pierce. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. We're talking about $3,000 roughly.
Each?
Yes.
And that's, there's 4? Three.
Well, there's me and 2 others right now on the committee.
Right.
We're not finished the agenda yet. So. Councillor Miller?
yeah, the amendment. I don't know what your budget is. I'm not touching it. I'm just suggesting that the other committee members have it reduced to what we all have.
Okay. All right. So everyone's clear as to what the motion is? Councillor Oakley.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, just to jump in, I believe it's $15.50 per councillor. That's on the Government Relations Committee, and so a total budget of $4,500 versus the regular councillor budget of, I believe it's $3,700. So $3,250. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else before we call the vote? So the vote is to take the increases away from the other 2 members of the committee back to the same as everyone else around the horseshoe. That's the motion, right? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Oh, no, not carried. Sorry. Okay, so we're back to Councillor Coleman's, Councillor Oakley. Councillor Garneau first, then Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will propose an amendment with regards to decision package number 1, that's climate action specialist, excuse me, and that we, rather than make that a permanent position, make that a 2-year contract. If I get a seconder, I'd like to speak to it, please.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Bell. I'm sorry, which one was it again, Councillor Garneau?
That's number 1, the climate action specialist.
Okay.
So having a seconder, if I may, having heard some of the discussion this evening and recalling our discussions over the past several weeks, I think that this is a position where there's mixed opinions on council, but certainly a will to see it go forward. A 2-year contract would offer the next cycle of council the opportunity to revisit that. Typically when we build in a position, it's a lot harder to take things away, especially full-time permanent employment. And my thoughts with the 2-year rather than 1 year is that would help probably recruit us someone who was going to be able to be here for a period of time and to give them the opportunity to get through a couple of grant cycles and whatnot to see if this is a position that is returning on its investment, but putting that decision into the hands of the next council as to whether or not they were to continue it thereafter.
Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I understand the philosophy behind this and respect it. My question is for the CAO. In our current hiring climate, I'm interested in your view on the pros and cons of full-time position versus contract position in terms of attracting the candidate we need for this position.
Through you, Your Worship. So we've never recruited for this position, so it's a little hard to tell. There's definitely certain areas where we have a more difficult recruiting environment. You know, in very high level terms, it's easier to recruit permanent full-time, just because, you know, people generally want that security. Certainly a longer term contract, as suggested, assists with that. And the likelihood of having difficulty with a contract position generally will increase with the seniority of it. So this is, you know, I would say a more mid-level. So it's hard to say. It does make it slightly harder, but we could, you know, if council were to approve it, we could also go out for the recruitment and, you know, test the environment and see, you know, what we're getting and then report back to council. But, you know, it makes it slightly harder. But again, we haven't recruited for this particular position before, so I would be hesitant to say specifics.
Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and that makes sense to me, and I'm not sure if Councillor Garneau would, you know, if she's talking just a 2-year contract, that's it, or if we could word it in a way of a 2-year contract with the potential of 2 more, because or an extension or something like that, because I agree. I think you know, there is a lot of mixed emotions around the horseshoe, and I appreciate her bringing that up like that. And this could be the you know, the happy medium to get that position, to understand what it's going to do or what it's not going to do for the 2 years, with an option of 2 more. Just a thought.
Councillor Garneau, you want to speak first?
Certainly, I think that would be the idea, is that future council could make that decision. So perhaps there needs to be wording recognizing the timing of the budget cycles and how that might work for employment, that if senior staff felt at the time it had to come to council in advance, sort of as we saw some of the other decision packages earlier. I wouldn't want to necessarily bind them on how long one might renew, because that's our future self, however we're incarnated, but perhaps, yeah, some language that allows staff to bring that recommendation at the appropriate time, so as not to put us in an HR dilemma down the road. So.
Thank you, through the mayor, to Councillor Garneau. I would suggest wording that a 2-year contract with possibility of extension, and not put a timing on the extension portion.
Councillor Oakley?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I will support this amendment. I obviously would prefer that it is just full-time, because I believe in the position, but given that the premise is I believe in the position will pay for itself, and this gives the opportunity for it to prove that it can do so. So happy to support this amendment so that everyone can find that happy medium as Councillor Pierce highlighted.
Any other comments to the amendment? Councillor Coleman.
With being a contract, Mr. Mayor, will there be benefits for this package?
Through the mayor, to Councillor Coleman, there will be some, but I will ask finance to confirm what that amount will be.
We might be looking at a few thousand reduction for OMERS and things like that wouldn't apply to a contract. So I would say maybe we put 2,000 off the price for in order to count for it being a contract if this passes.
Any other questions? So we're voting on the amendment. It has a seconder. Who seconded it? Councillor Bell. Okay, it's on the floor. It has a seconder. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Any other alterations or concerns? Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to amend that we approve decision packages 25, 26, and 27 in their full allotments and pull a further, hold on one second, $115,302.50 from the contingency reserve. Seeking a seconder.
Councillor Bell.
And if I could speak to it. Yeah. So I'd like to put forward this amendment. On February 6th, we decided not to fully fund these requests, which I believe was a severe mistake on our part. And then later on in that day, we decided to pull down initially $1.5 million from our contingency and eventually ratchet that back to roughly $1.3 million, the exact funding dollars that we had added in decision packages. Seeing as that number that we ended up at was ultimately arbitrary, I see no reason why we should be cutting the funding in half for these programs, which we had just heard a week previous was wildly successful and had great benefit to members of our community that greatly need the support, and programs that actively have saved lives of members of our community. And if we fail to fund it in the same degree that we have, there are members of the community who are alive today who may not be alive next year if we fail to act in this way. So I very strongly feel that we should be fully funding this, particularly since the amount that we pulled down from contingency reserve was ultimately arbitrary.
Councillor Bell.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support what Councillor Oakley has just said, but I think we had this conversation last year. We said this is a one-time funding. And I think I would like to add to Councillor Oakley's amendment that we do a lot more advocacy with provincial government. I didn't see it actually on the list of things that we should be advocating for. I think it's incumbent upon us to recognise that we have a near-term problem, and it will continue to be a near-term problem unless we take some action, and it's got to be through the provincial government to make a difference. So if Councillor Oakley is happy with adding that to his amendment, I'd be happy to continue.
You're okay with that? Comments? Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I don't think it'll come as a surprise to my colleagues that I won't be supporting the amendment. I am challenged by the justification that is brought forward that because funds were taken out of the contingency to support marking down the tax rate, that we should continue to do this when this is being motivated by someone who so strongly spoke against that at the time. Clearly we can revisit our decisions in committee of the whole, but I think we have to reflect on what the property tax levy is intended to support. And I've spent a lot of time over the last month really appreciating the authority we have around this table to effectively force people who own land in our community to give us money and then decide how to spend that. It has been a really enlightening experience to spend time reflecting on that authority. I think that there's some symbolism here that needs to be reflected upon, and we are essentially telling, should this go ahead, folks, that they have to give us money that we are going to redirect to services that in some cases cause problems for members of our community rather than solve them. I appreciate my colleagues' comments that perhaps lives may be saved through this, but we also have to reflect that lives can be lost through this. For those who are not familiar, the response systems to domestic violence are inherently biased against men, and men can face allegations that are not substantiated that adversely affect outcomes for them in family court, including their relationships with their children. Men who experience parental alienation that can be perpetuated through these organizations have a much higher rate of suicide. I, having been through experiences myself as an alienated child and as the partner of someone who has also experienced challenges by false allegations of domestic violence, I can't support number 25 in this, and since we're omnibus, that does mean 26 and 27 go along with it. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, through you. My only comment in response to Councillor Garneau's messaging, while I am always appreciative of the experience that she has and she brings to the table, I think it's incumbent upon us to remember that number 25 is for Nova Vita, and Nova Vita is the only women's shelter. They are designated, they are mandated, they are there to provide shelter and services for women as their primary focus. And that said, they have repeatedly told us over and over again that they do provide wraparound services for all family members.
Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you in response, we're not actually discussing funding the women's shelter at Nova Vita tonight. I think that I might have a different perspective if that were where this funding is going. But instead, it's going to a rural outreach worker who does not have that same mandate to offer equitable support to men. So I think it's important that we detangle what the broader mandate is of that organization and look at where this money that we are funding would be used. And as I have asked a few times, the organization does not support men who are victims, only men who are perpetrators.
Any other comments? No. Councillor House?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question's more about the math, and I just wanted to seek clarification on, from the CAO, with the way Councillor Oakley has presented this, with the contingency factored, do we still end up at 5.1 plus 1 as our bottom line? Is that where we...
Through the mayor, Councillor House, the general manager can add to this if I don't get it all right. So I believe, as presented, our bottom line would stay the same. But so the added funding would be offset by the contingency.
Where we're at right now with the fire communications piece we're sitting at 5.3 plus 1. So what we are looking at right now with this contingency piece would be no change to that, but that's where we're sitting right now.
Any other conversation on either side of this motion? Seeing none, we'll call the vote. All those in favor of Councillor Oakley's motion? Opposed? It's carried. That's great. Okay. No other questions for Councillor Coleman's report? Councillor Miller? Isn't it your report? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right, questions. Councillor Miller.
I've spoken, and I'd like to speak one more time, not an amendment or anything, but did you? Okay. All right. Just, and I missed it, was away, but there was talk about the Brant County Power Fund last time, and I know it's not part of this, but it's going to come up again throughout the year. Heather's bringing forth a report, but it was said at the last meeting that the Brant County Power Fund just sits there. And I think it's really important to understand that it doesn't just sit there. It does two things that are critical that weren't discussed. Obviously, we know it's a revenue source. It generates generates interest. That interest goes into our operations budget and capital budgets, and it helps defer extra property tax on people. And we have to understand that not all dollars are the same. When we have a dollar come in from an investment, we're getting that from an investment person, somebody that's out trying to make money, which is fine. I mean, that's how the world works. But that money that's coming in is we're not asking somebody on a fixed income, a pensioner on a fixed income, to provide that money. We're not asking a young family with a high mortgage to to pay more property taxes. So the dollars coming in from the Brant County Power Fund are so much more important to me, and they should be to you guys as well, than property taxes. And it's also money coming in from the outside. So it's money that's coming from outside of the county into the county and doing a lot of good. So there's that aspect. It's bringing in, what I say, good dollars. The second thing the Brant County Power Fund also does is it's an emergency fund. And we will, at some time, and it's guaranteed because the odd probability says it's going to happen eventually, but we're going to be faced with an emergency, whether it's a tornado, and I give you the examples of Grand Bend or Barrie, whether it's a cyber attack, I give you the example of Hamilton, whether it's a fire, I give you Aurelia's business section last month, whether it's a train derailment, I give you the example of Lac Megantic, or we could have something happen to one of our high-level bridges, and suddenly we are in a bind, we're in a pickle. So the Brant County Power Fund is important. We've had it for a while. It's generated a lot of revenues over the last few years. So just when the report comes forward, just keep that in mind, that it's not just sitting there. It's providing dollars, and I will call them good dollars. And it's also, at some point, hopefully not too soon, but we're going to need a rainy day fund because we will have an emergency of some type. So, like I said, you guys talked about it last time, but those 2 points weren't brought up. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Chambers?
Just, Mr. Mayor, with regard to the report itself, we've already had a lot of discussion and changes to the original, and to be honest with you, I've kind of forgotten where we're at, and I don't have the screen up there to see. In my mind, there's no real hurry to do this. I'm suggesting that perhaps we table the discussion on this report until next Tuesday, which is an open night, to have a committee of the whole meeting, and followed by a special council meeting to deal with the 2025 budget. And the reason I say that is that still, I think, at least I'm not happy with a over 6% budget increase. I'm not happy with being on a council that in 3 years has spent more money than the last council did in 4. I'm not happy being on a council that has added 12 or proposing to add 12 positions this year, along with, I think it was 11 last year, more than the previous 3 terms combined. I'm not happy with the fact that we have some very serious capital programming to fund hospitals, housing, etc. And I'm just thinking that we need to look at this budget a little bit closer. I think staff can take what they presented and perhaps see if they can't bring this more in line with the surrounding municipalities, which are lower than what we're projecting. And I just think that this council needs to recognize that we are spending money faster, at a faster rate in this council than the rate of the last 4 councils, 4 terms. Our assessment is not increasing like it was in the previous 3 terms. And actually the assessment is starting to plateau. The growth is starting to flatten, but our expenditures are continuing to rise faster than the assessment is growing, which is not a recipe for, it's not going to be appreciated by the taxpayers in the future. So I think we need to have another look at this budget. We've already had several amendments. There may be additional amendments. There may be rethinking on whether to use a contingency reserve for one thing or another. Last meeting, we had some councillors were adamantly opposed to using the contingency reserve. And now we are seeing that the majority are. So those kind of things I think we need to look at. That there's no big rush to do it tonight. If we can save a percentage point or 2 percentage points, or hopefully we won't add anything, but that's what we're doing tonight. So I'm proposing to move that the discussion on this report be tabled until next Tuesday for a committee of the whole meeting, followed by a special council meeting to finalize the 2025 budget.
Yes, we're seeking a seconder. Councillor Miller. Any other conversation? Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Mayor, through you. I just want to make one point clear in the fact that yes, it is. At this point in time, we're looking at 6.3%, but we need to remember that 1% of that is for the hospital fund, which is going to be noted as a total separate line on that. So in essence, had it not be for the hospital, we would be at 5.3%, which is within our neighbors. So I'm on the border right now whether I'm going to support this or not. But I think if we take the hospital out of the equation, which we can't, we obviously have to have that. But if we look at everything else, we're at 5.3%, which is right on target with a lot of our neighbors.
Anyone else? Councillor Garneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'll support Councillor Chambers' proposal this evening. I knew where I stood coming into tonight's meeting based on the materials that were circulated and the decisions council had previously made, but I would appreciate that extra week to reflect on where we're at now and kind of how I want to respond to that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Bell?
Not so much a question, more of a comment. We've been at this for 2 months now. I feel like we kicked this around as far as we should kick it around. I don't think we're out of line. And I think we should be very careful to look at 1 year in isolation. We need to look at the trend. We need to look at how we have performed relative to our competitors over a period of time. And I think we need to recognize that we're a growing community. And we sometimes have to get in front of that growth in order to be able to manage it properly. And I think all that we've seen brought forward is in line with that. And I think where we need to pay our attention to is thinking about next year's budget now, which was at 12 or 13%, if I remember rightly, from the long-term financial plan. That's where I'd rather put the effort.
Councillor House.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And my feelings are similar. I understand where Councillor Chambers is coming from, and in principle, it seems like more sober second thoughts might make sense. But in this case, because we have had multiple meetings on this subject, and I don't see how in the next 7 days we're going to find a silver bullet that's going to suddenly take $500,000 or $1 million or $5 million or whatever out of this budget to suddenly make a big difference. I believe that staff have put their best efforts into getting us to here. If there was a silver bullet, they would have presented that to us by now. So I say let's wrap this up.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll be agreeing here with Councillor Howes and Councillor Bell, and I just also want to highlight in terms of where our budget increases are sitting over the past 3 years. Many municipalities have been experiencing higher than usual increases for a variety of factors, and just this year, City of Hamilton's around 6%, City of Brantford's around 5%, City of Woodstock was at 6%, and that's on top of the 6% county increase. Region of Waterloo's in the 6% range. We're all in and around the same area as a lot of our peers here, and we have a much lower starting tax rate that percentage is being applied to. So all things considered, yes, it's an increase. Yes, it's going to impact people, but realistically, we are in and around where our peers are, and that is more likely what the market's dictating as for what we should be expecting for an increase.
Any other comments or speakers before we call the vote? Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I wish I really had a forecast what's going to happen south of the border. It would make a big difference on what we're thinking on approving a budget. But I can't see us waiting another week. And I think Councillor Pierce summed it up right. It's about a 5.3%, another percent added on for the hospital fund. I think we're in good shape to make this work. So I support we move on forward with approval of this tonight.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Chambers.
sorry, a second time speak, anybody that wants to speak. I'm just, I guess I don't want to be seen as unwilling to do the best we can to set the budget that we need for 2025. This will be looked at in my mind as an unwillingness to further examine budget for cost savings to reduce the levy for 2025 if it's not passed.
Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. I'm going to make the comment that, you know, sure, we take a look at it again. We spend a bunch of staff hours and they find 0.1%. Let's just hypothetically say that. Then it comes back in a week and we say, well, you know what? Let's see if we can do better. So we spend a whole bunch more staff time on that. By the time we're done, we spent more money on staff time than the potential reductions we have in there. I absolutely agree with Councillor Howes what he was saying earlier. If there was savings to be found, staff's already found it. They understand exactly what we're coming from. It's been mentioned around this horseshoe several times that, you know, go back and see what you can do. See what you can do. See what you can do. How many times can we do that? There's got to be a point in time where we say, yeah, you know what? We trust our staff. They've done the best they can. This is where we're going. I can't support delaying this.
Councillor Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, just quickly to say I wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Pierce's comments. I think we need to remember that we have great staff. They have done an excellent job in trying to find whatever cost savings they can. And I think it's also important to remember that with every project, they're constantly looking for ways that if there's grant money or ways to reduce costs and come in under budget when they can. So I think we at some point need to put our trust in our staff that they are working for the best interests of our residents and on behalf of council to find those cost savings. And I agree the 5.3% is right in line with a lot of our neighbors and with the 1% for the hospital, which we all can recognize is absolutely critical that we have to do. So I am in support of my colleagues here.
Any other questions? Conversation? No. Well, I'd like to say to Councillor Chambers that you're right. This council and the last council, which I've been on both, have done a lot. I'm not going to put it in the terms that you use. Spent a lot of money, or the other day when you said there's been no leadership around this horseshoe, which was very offensive to myself and to the CEO. I'm not sure who you were speaking to, but we in the room were uncomfortable when you said it. The county of Brant is not the same as it was 8 years ago in 2018 when most of the people around this horseshoe came in. You can go from every entrance to the county of Brant and come back into the middle of the county of Brant, and there's nothing that hasn't changed. It's all changed, and the population's changed, and why people are coming here has changed. The standard of living has changed. So to say that this council has spent more money, we have, but look what else we've done. And we haven't just sort of have nothing to show for it. And we do have reserves, and we have money sitting places where that will help us if we ever get into an emergency. I think it's very unfair that you put it the way you did, but that's up to you. It's your prerogative. But I don't feel like we've been spending crazy. I think that we got a lot done, and getting a lot done costs money. So I can't support putting it off another day, let alone another week. And we did say at the last meeting that there would be time at this meeting to add things and to talk about it and to massage the whole process. So no one should be surprised that we've added things and changed things, because we said we would. This was the time when we were going to do it, and we've done it. So no one should really be surprised that it just happened. Okay. Anything else from anyone? Okay, call the vote to defer. That's how it is, to defer it? Up to table it. All those in favor of tabling it? 3. All those against tabling it? More than 3. Okay, which takes us back to a motion to receive this as with all the new suggestions to fully support the 3 pieces that Lucas wants to support, and to add the position for the fire hall. And Councillor Pierce?
And, sorry, Mr. Mayor, can we just confirm that we are now 5.3 plus the 1, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And what else did we have? We had the three pieces for Councillor Oakley and the climate action person and the fire hall person. That's what we've done. And the numbers haven't changed. And I think we've talked about it an awful lot. Have anything to add before we vote? All those offended, all those in favor. Now the ones that are offended. All those opposed? Yeah. So, okay. This takes us to number 9.3, which is the Government Relations Committee report. That's Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Oakley, that the Government Relations Committee report of February 10th, 2025 be approved.
Thank you. Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So number 2 on there, it's got, and that Councillor, who you declared vice chair?
Well,
just says on Councillor.
It has to be Councillor Oakley or Councillor Kyle.
I understand that, but it doesn't say anything. It just says that Councillor.
So I think it will be Councillor Oakley because Councillor Kyle is the chair.
I appreciate that. I'm just saying that it doesn't say that. It just says Councillor.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I just thought I would draw attention to the list of delegation requests, noting that this is the same list that was put forward back in the fall to this council in terms of the topics for delegations at the upcoming conferences for this year. So obviously this is the list kind of as it stands. The only thing that was added the other day at our most recent Government Relations Committee meeting was the Ministry of Red Tape Reduction at the bottom there for Bishopsgate. But other than that, it's the same list as before. And as always, we are open to any suggestions, changes, that type of thing that this council might have.
Councillor Garneau and Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I think more to a question to staff. When we had the Friday file on this topic, councillors were invited to submit additional topics, and I was surprised to see, having missed the having watched the February 10th meeting, that the Paris wastewater treatment plant was not made a priority, especially after that was raised during budget. I understand from the clerk's office that this was actually, in fact, prioritized as our good roads delegations. So I'm just wondering if we could get clarification that in fact did happen, and then a further question to the committee chair about whether the committee has had any discussions about prioritizing these, because goodness, this is a lot of things to be delegating on should they all come to fruition. Thank you.
Councillor Kyle, I think the question is to you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And in response to the councillor's question, again, this is the list, so that's why it's here before council. If there's things that, obviously, for example, at Roma, we had a really good delegation with Ministry of Health about the new hospital. So perhaps for good roads, then the priority would be the funding for the family health team. So again, this is the full list from the fall. And we're open to suggestions from this council as to which topics are of the priority for good roads, recognizing that some we were successful with Roma in having some really good delegations, and maybe we don't need to revisit those ones at good roads again. The other caveat that I would throw in is that there is a chance that there are not delegations at good roads. So again, we could be talking about this and then it's a moot point, because if there's a change in government, or there'll be some changes regardless after Thursday, there may or may not be the opportunity to meet with any or at least some of the ministries we would have liked to have met with.
Allison?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Garneau, you're correct, that is no mission. I can confirm that a request for the Paris water treatment plant was submitted, and I've seen the briefing note that was prepared, so I can confirm that was done.
Councillor Bell, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Reference our earlier conversation about advocating for more provincial government funding for the 4 organisations that support victims of intimate partner violence. I think we need to step up on that, because I don't want to be in budget time next year not having gone to at least one or two of these delegations. I'm seeing Councillor Kyle nod her head. Thank you.
Councillor Coleman, you're next, and then Councillor Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question to is the Ministry of Transportation safety concerns on Highway 24A for agriculture operators. I would like to see that broaden and not just for Highway 24. That is a problem in the whole damn county of Brant, not just 24.
Thanks for getting that off your chest, Councillor Coleman. You're welcome. I'm sure you're feeling better. We'll go to Councillor Kyle and then to Councillor Oakley.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Coleman, absolutely 100% agree. And that was actually one that we did have a chance to speak with the minister at Roma about. So yeah, we could certainly broaden that to all of our roadways and the agricultural operators.
Thank you. Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to further comment on the number of delegations as per Councillor Gardner's comment about it being a lot of delegations, if we are all successful on them, that is true. I would, however, note, and I think this was part of the reasoning behind applying for so many, at Good Roads, we do have no less than 8 members of council going, so there is plenty of support to be able to cover all of these delegations if we are miraculously successful at getting all of them.
Councillor Chambers.
Just for clarification, the list, some we've already made delegations, so the idea is to make this same delegation again. Is that what I'm understanding? Or are there some that are off the list?
Is your question for Councillor Kyle? Yeah, Councillor Kyle.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Chambers. Yes, so if there was one we've already had a delegation on, but this council still felt we needed to go back at it again, we could do it again. If not, like I said, with the hospital, for example, we had a really good one. Maybe we don't need to go back on that one and we go to our other Ministry of Health topic that we had on there. We don't, that's the discussion we wanted to have with council here. So if there's something you think we need to continue to go at, we can, but we can say, you know what, we had a good one. Let's focus on family health teams for Good Roads and we'll set the hospital one aside this time. So it's flexible. We can do whatever the priority is from council's direction.
Is that the discussion we're supposed to be having now?
Yes.
Then that gets back to what Councillor Garneau suggests, is the prioritization of the delegations. In my mind, sometimes if you just keep going and going and going and going, it doesn't actually does more harm than good. If you're making the same presentation because they know, they remember. The other thing that I wanted to have clarification is it's always been my understanding that the topics, if you can't have 2 delegations to do 2 different ministries on the same topic. Is that still in play? You understand what I'm saying? In other words, I'm seeing that we are meeting with the Ministry of the Red Tape reduction on the Bishopsgate interchange as well as the Ministry of Transportation. It's always been my understanding that you don't double up on the same topic with the same ministries.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Chambers, you're absolutely correct. That is a mistake, and again, I've seen the briefing notes. So the submission to the Ministry of Red Tape was on Bishopsgate, now I'm doing it, on Rest Acres Road, and getting that actually approved. So that is a mistake in the minutes, but it was a different delegation to MTO.
Any other, Councillor Oakley?
I think, Mr. Mayor, just as I'm thinking of it, just to follow up and not to disagree, we absolutely should be prioritizing here if we've already delegated on something we want to rearrange those priorities. But I will also note that we have an election on Thursday and we will have a different sitting government on Thursday, whether that's another Ford government or potentially some other government. And regardless, even if it is another Ford government, there's also very often ministerial changes. So it may still be worth going for the same topics to the same ministry because it'll be a different minister, different staff, so on and so forth.
Anyone else have anything else to say? Okay, so we're voting. So we're still just voting as is then. Because really we don't even know if these ministers are going to be delegations. We don't know anything And as Councillor Oakley just said, there's an election on Thursday, so nothing, we're voting just to accept this, but this can all change. Allison?
Thank you through the mayor. To council, I believe there was also an amendment on to add intimate partner violence funding advocacy. A correction that Rust Acres Road was the Ministry of Red Tape, and the addition of the Paris Water Treatment Facility.
Councillor Oakley.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, not be a pain. Do we need to vote on the addition of the intimate partner violence? Since I believe that's not an addition, or that's not a correction, that is an addition.
Right. We need to vote on that. Yeah. Now? Do you want to do it now? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? And carried. Okay. So now we're voting on everything else. We're voting on the whole, knowing that nothing is really firm. It's all going to change probably on Thursday, but the intent is this, or very close to it, or as close as we can get to it. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Takes us to 9.4, which is Administration and Operations Committee report, and that is Councillor Oakley.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor House that the Administration and Operations Committee report of February 18th, 2025 be approved.
Are there questions for the report? Another long report. No questions. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Takes us to number 10.1, which is a staff report. This is about the way we're going to move forward with the Bucket Center situation. Heather, do you want to come and speak to it, or do you want to? Oh, it's Mark. He's here. Okay. I need a mover to get down the floor. Councillor Kyle and Councillor McAlpine.
Thank you. Through the mayor, this report is just considering the additional fees requested by DPAI for the additional work that they believe they completed to complete the design and bring it to a tendering phase. It's the request in front of you tonight is all related to the scaled up building size and the extended project duration. That's related to the 143,000 that's been requested, and then you see the second recommendation is for the CAO to approve any additional fees related to the cancellation of the contract and some other consultant fees that we know are going to be requested. We didn't have all the information provided to us in time to include in this report, so that's why we're asking for the CAO's approval on that.
Any questions? Councillor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. So the additional work of the 143,000, when would that have had to have been paid? If this was going forward, when would that have had to have been paid?
So through the mayor, so typically when you know that there's a change in the scope of the project, that's brought forward at the time that that's known, and it's approved at that time. In this case, I think going back to 2023, we knew that there was a change in the project scope, and the project team and the architect were willing to wait until the tender was brought forward to council to make that request. So normally it is earlier than tonight.
Okay, if I could, Mr. Mayor, now a comment, and I appreciate the way you said that because that was my understanding too, that DPAI noted that they were willing to wait. So what really caught me off guard here was DPAI has noted that the design budget shortfall of 143,039 is causing financial hardship to the firm. I take offense to that comment because as you just pointed out, they were the ones that said that they would wait until the tender was brought. So again, I understand that's money we have to pay. I get that. But that comment, I don't feel was necessary because that wasn't us holding out. That was them saying, hey, we'll wait till that's done. That's all I got to say.
Councilor Miller.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could probably dig this up if I went through enough notes and previous minutes, but through Mr. Mayor to Mark, how much have we paid them already? You know?
Through the mayor, we've paid the full amount that's been approved, which is 1.388 million.
So close to 1.4, and this,
And that includes. Sorry. That includes the construction phase allotment on their original amount. They were approved to use the construction phase allotment to complete the design.
but this final amount is causing them financial hardship.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Communications, we don't have any. Resolutions, Councillor Chambers has a resolution here to reconsider the encampment resolution update and reconciliation. We need 2/3 vote to go back. And having said that, we can't have any discussion on the subject until we vote. Yeah, you ready? All those in favor? Oh, wait a minute. Councillor Chambers is looking very angry at me. See my lack of leadership.
Is that a snub to me?
Yes, sort of. That's what you said at a public meeting. You did. I'll send you the link. So you have your hand up now?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The rules that we're referring to, you cannot discuss the motion that is to be reconsidered. The motion to reconsider has to be presented before you can vote on it.
Okay.
So am I able to present the motion?
Not according to what I've been told, but if you know better, you've been around a lot longer. I've never done one before. So you know better than I do. So with that being said, I guess, yes, you can. Councillor Bell.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. I was in this position just over a year ago, and I was going to read what Councillor Chambers said. According to procedural bylaw, a motion to reconsider is not debatable, so you cannot explain what you want a motion to reconsider. That's what he said, and I got stopped from doing it. So I think for consistency, we should not permit this.
Councillor Chambers.
Again, I think you're referring to the rule that says that motions to reconsider are not debatable, and they're not. So the motion has to be put before it is debated on. So once the motion is put, then you cannot debate it. But there's nothing that says that you cannot put the motion to reconsider.
Okay. It doesn't make any sense to me at all, and we didn't do that with Councillor Bell. Councillor Chambers?
Once the motion is put, it is not debatable. That's rule number, I think it's 42. 44. I stand corrected.
Yeah, can I get some direction from? Okay. You know what? I can allow you to do that.
So Mr. Mayor, it's important to understand why I am asking for reconsideration, because there has been.
They're not liking my ability to let you speak.
Is this another point of order?
Order. I think I'm looking for consistency, and I'm thinking that what you're suggesting, Mr. Mayor, is inconsistent with the treatment I got a year ago.
Councillor Chambers, I think I think he's right. We know what we voted on, and we know that you opposing it or wanting to reel it back. We know what that means because we've already brought it forward, so we know what we brought forward, and we know that you want to reconsider it. So we do know. We don't know exactly why you're doing it, but we know that you want to do it, and maybe we have already decided we want to do it. Councillor Pierce.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Can we have the clerk weigh in on this?
Through your worship, I'm looking at the procedural bylaw right now, and according to section 49, it says no discussion of the main question which is proposed for reconsideration shall be allowed until the motion to reconsider is carried. So I would propose you vote on it first and then discuss it.
Chambers.
So I cannot, and I agree, I cannot discuss the motion prior to it being reconsidered. The reconsideration motion has to pass before you can discuss the main motion. That's what that rule says. There's also a rule that says motions to reconsideration are not debatable. I think that's what Councillor Bella's referring to. So there's, once the motion is put, in other words, once the motion is moved and seconded, it cannot be debated. That's what that rule says. So all I'm saying is I have to put the motion, and once it's put, it's not debatable. But I can put the motion before the table because I have given notice, proper notice to do so. So what I'm trying to do is move the motion to reconsider. And in order to do that, it's very important that I express why, because I have been accused of trying to stop or circumvent the rights of the homeless, criminalize the homeless, etc. So it's important that I say why I am moving to reconsider.
I think Councillor Chambers is doing what we have just discussed is not permissible. He's actually doing it, just talking over your ruling.
Yep, that's what's happening. Okay, Councillor Kyle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, potentially, I guess, to the clerk. Just so for some clarity on procedure and process here, Councillor Chambers could theoretically introduce his motion and saying he would like council to reconsider this decision without his explanation of why, and then if council votes to reconsider it, then he would go into his explanation on why he was wanting to reconsider it. Because essentially we're just agreeing to time travel back, correct, at this point?
Yes, through your worship, yes, we just need it to be moved and seconded so that the resolution can be reconsidered at this meeting. Then we can proceed with the discussions.
Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would just like to weigh in that I believe Councillor Bell here is correct. When he brought his motion to reconsider, he was not able to give any sort of preamble as to why he was bringing it forward. And in fact, to bypass that, he wrote an op-ed in the paper as a way to be able to explain where he was coming from. So at this moment, it would not be appropriate for Councillor Chambers to give a preamble explaining why the motion to reconsideration is coming forward.
So, Councillor Chambers, do you want to just make the motion to put it on the floor, seeking a seconder, so we can vote on it?
Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to put the motion on the floor unless I can put it the way I want to put it.
That's not the way it reads.
Is there any municipality in Ontario that prevents a councillor from putting a motion on the floor, provided that he is given proper notice to do so?
I just asked you to put it on the floor, Councillor Chambers.
Okay, then I'll put it on the floor.
Thank you. Seeking a seconder.
I'm not. I will put it on the floor by saying that there are reasons for reconsideration. And one of the reasons for a motion to reconsider is that if, when the vote was taken, not all members of council are present, then that is a legitimate reason to have a vote for reconsideration. Because if not all members of council were present, then that excludes that councillor, in this case, Councillor Miller, who was absent when the vote was taken. It precludes him from speaking to the motion. It also takes away his vote on the resolution. So that is one reason why motions to reconsider are put. And there's a second reason, and one of the reasons to not do that is just because I lost the vote. I'm not doing it because of that. There's another reason, and the second reason is sometimes the circumstances change. In some cases, they change a lot, so that impacts on the vote that you may have different.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're just going round in circles here. I could have made the very same arguments a year ago, and I was shut down.
That being said, if I can continue, the reason for...
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. Are we going to let this continue when you stopped me a year ago? Please, I think you need to be consistent in this.
I feel like I have to be consistent too. I just was hoping that Councillor Chambers had been around long enough to know how these are handled and not trying to do something he knows he can't do. I believe he can't discuss it either. I think we should just call the vote. Councillor Pierce?
So I'm just listening to what's going on here, and I have yet to hear Councillor Chambers state anything to do with the actual motion. What he has stated is the rationale for the reconsideration of a motion. So I'm not thinking that that line has been crossed at this point in time. That's just an observation.
All right. I just don't know what else Councillor Chambers can say that he already hasn't said that's going to make it equal or fair the way we treated another councillor a year ago. Like why should you be able to prove your case of bringing it forward when Councillor Bell couldn't? I don't understand the difference.
I'm just trying to put a resolution in front of council.
And what do you think the way forward is to do that?
To allow me to put the motion in front of council.
I don't understand it. I don't understand what we can do to make you feel better about when you've put it in front of council. You made you said it was coming. It's here. We know what it is. We know what you want. And really, until you get the support to go forward, it doesn't need to be discussed because we've already decided what we wanted to do as a council, and now you're trying to wind it back.
I'm trying to wind it back because not all members of council had the opportunity to express their opinion and vote on the matter. That's one reason. And the second reason is that circumstances have changed dramatically since the vote was taken. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if you're not at council when major things happen, I mean, you don't get your vote. We don't save your votes up in a jar to when you decide to come back. I've seen very important votes happen around this horseshoe with people that I wished were here and they weren't. So because Councillor Miller wasn't here doesn't mean everything wasn't valid.
I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that is one of a valid reason for a motion to reconsider. But if you think Councillor Miller's opinion and vote don't matter, then
don't turn it around like that, Councillor Chambers. That's not what I said at all. I said there's been very important votes taken around this horseshoe when there's people that weren't here that I wished was, but I did not belittle or suggest that Councillor Miller's attendance wasn't important. I think that was completely unfair. I didn't say that.
I know you didn't. I didn't say that you did. Did I?
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
You said.
Mr. Maris, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Coleman, whereas a resolution, and it's attached, was passed December 3rd, 2024 in open council. And whereas not all members of council were present to take part in the discussion and to vote on the motion at that time. And whereas it is highly disrespectful and unnecessary to exclude and prevent a member of council from speaking to and voting on a matter when the matter can be reconsidered with all members present. And whereas the circumstances that prompted the resolution have changed considerably from when the motion was first voted on. And whereas the subsequent change in circumstances have a direct bearing on and are significantly consequential to the motion, be it resolved that the motion attached be reconsidered at a meeting where time allows, where relevant information can be provided, and when all members of council are present to discuss the matter. And as rule states, the motion is not debatable. So now, Mr. Mayor, you can call the question, and I would ask that the motion be recorded since it has to be 8 to pass.
We will call the vote. And it will be a recorded vote. So the vote is to reconsider.
Can the members of council in support of Councillor Chambers' motion please stand? Thank you. And can the members of council who are against this motion please stand? Thank you.
Blessings learned. Moving on. 12.2, to notice the motion of Councilor Darnell. You have her notice of motion in front of you. Do you want her to read it, or? Councilor Darnell, do you want to read it? No? No, thank you. Okay. So just know that that's coming. Proclamation request for Black History Month. A motion to get on the floor, Councilor Oakley. I need a seconder, Councilor Howes. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I was going to ask a question on that one and all the other ones coming forward. I didn't review the criteria we got, but asking through you to staff, do all these, and there's a bunch coming forward, do they all meet our criteria?
Allison?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Miller. So they do because they're not, well, excuse me, they do, but not all of them are asking for lighting of Penman's Dam or the flag raising. Just I wanted to note that they're not all asking for the same thing, but staff have reviewed and they do meet the criteria. Noting council can always override that as well.
Okay, but as far as we know that they're good. Okay, I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Oakley?
To you, Mr. Mayor, just to follow up on sort of the thread Councillor Miller was pulling on there, would delegation, or sorry, not delegation, proclamation requests that don't fulfill our criteria, would they be filtered out before we would see them? Would we see them here? Would there be a note that it doesn't fulfill the criteria? I'm just curious how that functions.
Through the mayor to Councillor Oakley. So it would be brought forward if we were to receive a request. It would be brought forward with a recommendation from staff, just noting whether it mattered or didn't meet the criteria.
Okay, moving on to 12.4, which is the same, another request for Mental Health Week. Need a motion to get on the floor. Councillor Bell and Councillor Kyle. Any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Another proclamation for the Special Olympics. I need to get down the floor. Councillor Bell and Councillor Pierce. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 12.6 is Lupus Awareness Day. Need to get on the floor. Councillor Oakley, Councillor Arnaud. Any questions, concerns, Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Howes, you just sitting on the fence? That's all right. Thank you. Those are for all the people that are watching, you know, the ones that you remember they're watching. 12.7, proclamation again, awareness of, how do we say that? Yeah. We'll just say 12.7. Okay. And I need it put on the floor, please. Councillor Kyle and Councillor McAlpine. Any discussion other than how to say the name? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. World Autism Day. Need a motion? Councillor Pierce, Councillor McAlpine. Any discussion on World Autism Day? The requests that they have all asked for are in the on the paper. There's some of them want the dam lit up, some of them just want recognition, some of them just want us to proclaim it. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 80th anniversary of the victory of Europe, so VE Day. Need to put it on the table. Councillor Coleman, Councillor Howes. Any concerns? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, other business. None was coming forward. Councillor Miller?
Just really quick, and it was brought up before, and I'm going to say it because it affected me too. When you are watching council meetings online, it's so important for us to speak into the mic, and I'm shocked at Councillor Bell at how quiet you are there. Councillor Coleman's mic was cutting out last time, and that's not his fault. Last comment Councillor Chambers made, his mic wasn't on at all, and you want to hear what you guys are saying, and if you're not speaking into the mic, the people watching it can't. So just another reminder.
Okay, thank you. There's nothing to go in camera for. The bylaws, Councillor Chambers, you have them. Oh, wait a minute, Councillor Oakley.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have to sit out of 15.5, so if it's easiest for everyone, I'll just sit out for all of them.
Okay. Councillor Chambers?
It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Miller that the bylaws be read a first time.
Councillor Kyle?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I do have something I wanted to flag in 15.4. And it's more or less just a correction, but I did note that there is a reference to the Ontario Chicken Farmers Association, which is section 6.11, and that should probably read Chicken Farmers of Ontario and maybe specifically the Niche Markets Family Food Program.
I'll make those corrections. Vote for the first reading of the bylaws. All those in favor? Councillor Chambers, if you could do it for the second time, please.
That they be read a second time and all preambles and clauses be adopted as amended.
Are there any questions to the second reading of the bylaws? Seeing none, all those in favor of the second reading? And then Councillor Chambers, if you can do it one more time, please.
And that they be read a third time, passed, signed, and executed, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miller.
All those in favor of the third reading of the bylaws? Is there anything else for the betterment of the county of Brant? Seeing nothing, the next meeting is going to be,
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what did I miss?
I was just going to adjourn us.
Oh. That would be very kind of you.